Hi class, my name's Renee Hemi. I am a 10th grade high school teacher for students with learning differences. With my lesson plan, I decided to kind of stretch myself a little and do elementary school. So I chose our first grade classes at the school I teach at, and talked with a bunch of their teachers on what units they're on, what's upcoming, and one of them was the five senses. And so to me, that was just kind of intriguing, and how could I make this easier for students that don't necessarily have the comprehension level or the background knowledge of what the five senses truly are. So, with that being said, in my lesson, I start with a journal activity. I know that our first grade students at Denver Academy have journals, and so they start out by just describing the classroom. And oftentimes, when you're describing something and without yourself knowing it, you're going to use the five senses. So, how does the classroom look? How does it feel? What's the environment around? The colors? So, your sight. And I just really wanted them to start thinking about the five senses without knowing that they are. From there in the lesson, I explain each of them. So, what is sight? As they use some of their examples of the classroom being green or blue. That's obviously talking about what you see, and then at times even what you can touch, right? So, the texture of the walls. And so, I go through each of those and I have things to pass out. So, for touch, something that's fuzzy or texturized, sandpaper, so that they feel the difference. And not only are they having to talk about it in our classroom, but they're also having to process through it with what is in their hands right then and there. At the same time, with it being a discussion based off of their journal, my students are getting to verbally discuss what they know, what they see, and hear the students around them with their other ideas. So after we go through each of the senses, I then bring them to the reading circle and I pass out these pictures of what would describe the five senses. So I picked pretty lifelike pictures that they would get to cut out. The eyes, the ears. So what do you see? What do you touch? What do you smell? And so that as we are reading the story, that's going to hit on a lot of the five senses. It's Old MacDonald Had a Dragon. I don't know if any of you have ever read it. It's super random, but it just hits a lot on the five senses. And for the kids to have to process as we're reading through a story, that's quite entertaining. How is the story describing sight? How is the story describing smell? So, once we get down to the reading carpet, they are given those pictures, and I give them time, just kind of freelance, to cut these out so that as I read to them, they are able to flash up pictures and see, oh, wait, my peers just put up an ear. Did we talk about something that we could hear? Etc. So after they cut those out, we clean up the reading circle, and we get down to it. So I'm in front of them, reading them the story. And then as we go through, they are bringing up their cards, and I pause and we talk about why they flashed that card. Why did they have that as what they had heard or smelt, etc., with the dragon? So we read through the story, we have that discussion, and my thought, I've done this lesson now, but when I first started, I was like, oh, this will only be like 20 minutes. It ended up being like a 45-minute type of story, and the kids were super into it, which is always helpful, and they were also helping each other. So after we read the story, they go back to their desks, and I do have the five senses note guide. So I've broken it down. Here's the same picture you saw as we were reading the book, right? And you have to tell me what sense this is, and then the descriptions that you could use. So they can give me anything from the story, from the classroom, or just even random. How are they able to apply sight? What is it that they do during the day that uses that sense? So my packet has all of these and the correlating pictures that we had already used, trying to kind of have that comprehensive understanding. And then to end, they give me an idea of what they could do for the five senses from how they wake up in the morning. So walk me through how you wake up in the morning and how that process goes and what senses you use, because you're going to use all of them. When you are brushing your teeth and you feel the grossness coming off, right? Or when you're brushing your hair, you have to watch that your hair is being brushed and you have to feel that your hair is being brushed, that texture, right? And then you also just have the hearing. So if I hear my knots being broken up, then I have those senses being used as I get ready for school in the morning. Now, for the standards off of the Colorado Academic website, a big piece of it for first graders is being able to use background knowledge to help them develop their understanding. So with my student, he is a really low comprehension, really low ability to bring back background knowledge at any time. So with him, it's more of how can we figure out that we've already been doing this and we do know what the five senses are, but then evaluate it and clarify for accuracy. So if we're looking at Colorado Academic Standard in the evidence outcome, it's W18, evaluate information for clarity and accuracy with guidance and support from adults, recall information from experiences, or gather information from provided sources to answer a question. And my assessment for my students in this is that they are able to first establish what the five senses are, and then for my overall classroom, most of them, they need to give me 3 examples. Now, for this individual student, it's being able to respond from the picture what sense is being talked about, and then to give 1 example. So not only is he having to evaluate and clarify, but he's also having to use his background knowledge of I have seen that picture of an ear, and it means sight, and etc. So it seemed to really work well. I am not done assessing him, the individual student, for the 5 senses. He does it through his journal and also with a prompter. And in this case, it's me because it's not my actual classroom at this school, so I'm able to come in and prompt him through that assessment. So hopefully this helps some of you all who are doing elementary and just kind of gives you an idea of how you can incorporate reading, evaluation, and just kind of clarification of background knowledge that they didn't necessarily have to think about before. But please, please, please look over my resources. I have attached all of my lesson and its pamphlets, and let me know what I can do to make this a little bit better for my first grade students at my school. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all, and I'm excited to see my feedback.